Every generation needs a revolution, Jimmy. The American dream is just that. Just a dream. War is a continuation of politics, only by other means. Politics is a continuation of economics by other means. This is our bank. This is our war. And this is our plan of attack.
Banks have become an essential threat to our democracy. So consider this justice.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the internet. Please help support this station so this battle can continue forward. Revolution Radio! The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Welcome to Sacred Matrix, a divine paradigm of love and universal consciousness, with your host, Janet Kira Lessin and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Together, we transform the world.
And now, here are your hosts, Janet Kira and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Aquarian Radio. Oh, sorry. Nope, Sacred Matrix at freedomslips.com on Revolution Radio. I'm sorry. We got to get this fan off. I think it's making a noise. Don't know if you can hear me. Mad, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. You have to call Sasha. The number
I'm trying.
Okay, good. Okay, so today we're going to have a very special show with myself, Janet Kira Lessin, and Dr. Sasha Lessin, and Karen Christine Patrick is coming on as our special guest, and she will be here momentarily. And Karen, let me see if I can pull up a bio for Karen. Karen has been my co-host for several years here. Okay, one second. Here we go. Sasha, take that into the back room. If you want it on speaker, put it right there. Okay, sorry about this, everybody. We're getting on the show. And here's Karen Patrick coming on. So Karen Patrick has been my co-host many times over the past few years here on Revolution Radio and on the Aquarian Radio Network. And she is an incredible investigator, author, researcher, into many of the topics that are relevant today. One of the things she is researching is how to bring around a balance in our planet in terms of economics and stability for every human being so that no one hits rock bottom, no one starves. So she's a specialist on the basic minimum needs economy. If she doesn't pick up that way on the Skype, Mad, can you call her on her phone?
That was her phone I was calling. Let me try it again.
Okay. And Sasha, get in the far back room because that just makes feedback. Okay. Sorry about all this. Okay. So, Sash, what would you like to say about Karen?
Karen's wonderful. Just she analyzes things and teases out the patterns. About
Yeah, we're calling her right now. Sorry for this inconvenience. Go ahead, honey. Keep talking.
Well, okay,
you have reached the voicemail box of 505.
Okay, let me double check the number in case I gave you the wrong number. I'm at.
That's
Hold
the
on.
number
Keep
she
talking.
gave me.
Okay, let me check.
She just gave it to me.
This.
She just gave it to me 3 minutes ago.
Oh, she just gave it to you. Okay. Let me double check what number I have for her. Maybe she transposed a number or something. Go ahead, honey. Keep talking.
Well, anyway, as soon as you get Karen, I mean, she's got all kinds of intellectual stuff, but her personal journey through life is a hero's journey. And, get her to talk about what she's been through and what she's learned through the life experiences that she's had, because her story is truly inspirational.
Excellent. So, okay, I just gave, oops, that's not the right window. Hold on one second. I got the wrong window. Oh, here we go. Sorry
Do
for
not
this
let us model
inconvenience.
technological proficiency. Don't act like us. I know you can do better.
Well, keep
Don't
talking while
impress
I look up the number, honey. Go ahead and stand on your head and do a dance. Okay.
This is really...
This is a Janet and Sasha, Alex Lessin comedy show here. If you didn't know you were getting a comedy show here.
Well, it's really fun. Wait, I'll come down here. Okay.
Okay. Go ahead, Sasha.
Okay. Okay.
I'm not sure, but I think she answered because it quit ringing.
Hi, Karen. Are you there?
Nope, it just hung up.
Oh. All right. Try her one more time. I just talked to her like 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, well, is she signed in on the phone on Skype or on the computer and not trying it on the phone?
Okay, I'll tell her. I'll tell her to sign off of Skype because I can text her. Okay. Alrighty, this is fun. We go through this every other day. Someday they'll have some kind of communication system that's far more effective than what we have right now. Okay, I told her to sign off of Skype. Let's see if it works.
So, it's a good time for the listeners of an internet radio station like this. Well, you just really dig it. We are getting a chance to talk like you couldn't on the media that you got to pay lots for. This is your station. We're here talking to you. You're hearing our words. You're passing it on. There's hope. There's love. There's life. We're here. We're here because of Matt, because he digs the truth that we're going after. We're here because we've been given a chance, and we are really glad to be able to talk from our hearts to you.
Karen, it looks like you might be there. Are you there, Karen?
I am here. That's great.
Yay! Karen,
I can hear you now.
Patrick. Yes.
See the magic,
Awesome.
See the magic of technology.
Alrighty, so Karen Christine Patrick, what would you like to tell us about yourself? And then we were going to talk about several things that you mentioned this afternoon earlier today about things like the basic minimum needs economy. And I didn't take really good notes, I apologize. But go ahead and tell our listeners who you are. Oh, what did
Karen,
you want to say, Sasha?
Karen, listen, I really told all the listeners about that you have a hero's journey in your own life, and your story is one of the most interesting ever. They would really like to hear your life story and how you got into all this.
Oh, sure. I'd be glad to tell it. I was really privileged a couple weekends ago to go to Silver City, New Mexico, and my partner Brett and I did a conference on cosmic communication, and I got into it because my journey into the weird kind of starts with the fact that I suppose the first thing that really starts everything off is that between the ages of about 3 and 10, I was legally blind, so I couldn't practically see past my nose. So I had to tune into the world in sort of a different way. Later, I realized that my parents did not understand that as soon as I got glasses, I could read. Like, I was 5, they found out I couldn't see past my nose. They got glasses for me. I could immediately read because later I realized I was looking at the book through the eyes of my father. I could, like, mentally project into other people's perspectives. And so that was an early interesting experience. And I found out throughout my life I had been doing kind of unconsciously, because it wasn't so much like, it was more of an impression, like it was the knowing, like I knew what was happening from their perspective. And then the next big thing that happened to me at 5 years old, I had this experience where I guess I was asked to pick a side, you know, team dark or team light. I was kind of asked to pick a side, and I said, you know, I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to go for the light. I'm going to be try to be a good person. And it's interesting that I made that commitment at 5 because I didn't realize that at 7 years of age, 2 years later, I was literally going to be confronting a program that was in the clandestine government where they were looking for psychic children. And I got probably the most information about it as far as recruitment of children for programs from our mutual friend, Andrew Bushago. Came out with his story about being a participant in Project Pegasus, which was teleportation and then later time travel, and then later he jumped into the Mars. And I am exactly the same age as Andrew. So he said he called me a cohort. So I'm in the cohort of people who were in recruitment for programs. So when I went to California, I was at Concord, California. I went to get tested to be in the program. By then I had my glasses, like it sort of be. And the testing just got more and more involved. I mean, they were testing me more than like they really were examining who I was. And they placed me in the gifted and talented program. And it was under a program, an overarching program called Project Talent. And the sort of the idea of it was we were in the Cold War era, we were in the NASA era, we wanted to upgrade our science and technology and STEM. That was a big STEM season, back before we gave it that acronym, science, technology, all that stuff. So the front-wise, presentation, let's find these kids, let's get them, make sure that they get math and science, make sure they go to college, and we'll have the workers that we need for the space age future. But the behind-the-scenes thing that was going on that I've been doing quite a bit of research on is that they were looking for also psychic children for a number of different kinds of programs, but probably your audience is familiar with this super soldier type program. Because at the time that, after the World War II and all that was going on, we just segued right into the Cold War with Russia. My dad was into this politically. He said the commies are coming. He was into the commies and was talking about that all the time and had meetings in our home. So I had a whole input there about what was the situation of the world. And I decided this is a really dangerous world. I maybe even said in my head, planet, I'm an alien that just came to visit and maybe I didn't like riding it up. So anyway, I got tested for this program and I got it put into the classroom. And I tell people this one story because I've been fascinated at who's reported back to me that this happens to them. My test, one of my students had a phone call trying to come through. I'm cutting it off. And why do people want to call me now?
Yes, you're on the radio.
Because I'm popular. It happens to be Ken Johnston, our friend Ken Johnston, who, by the way, everybody knows who he is.
That's ironic. I just typed his name into my phone here to talk to Victoria.
He just called me. He's trying to call me. So that's really, he's psychic, I guess. He's a psychic child.
We're all
But anyway,
psychic.
yes. I know. So anyway, so a couple things happened that I try to tell people about that recruitment. Is one day I was like a little suspect.
Hello?
Hello?
Hello, Karen. Is she on? No, she's still showing on.
Still showing here. Well, now
No,
she fell off.
Now can you get her back on, please?
I got to wait for her to disappear in the conversation for her.
Oh, then she'll disappear, and then we can go get her again. Oh, man. We're always having technical problems. So let's erase that. Anyway, that was ironic because I was just... I just got an email, and I just typed in Ken Johnston's name, and she gets a call from Ken Johnston at that precise moment. We're having a lot more of those synchronicities in life. What do you think that is, honey?
These people that we're interviewing on the show and the others that we've interviewed have been designated as ambassadors to higher consciousness. Are here to help us.
She's back. Yes,
okay.
yes. So, yes, keep going.
So I'm just a nerd old child doing my thing, trying to be a good kid. Get called in the vice principal's office, which, struck terror in the heart of any child. And I was brought into the office, and the vice principal wasn't actually there. Sitting in his office was a very professorial-looking gentleman. I perceived he was not a school official, actually, wearing kind of a frumpy tweed suit and had glasses that he looked, just like he looked over the top of his glasses at me like I was kind of an experiment or a bug or something. I don't know what the deal was. But a couple of things he did was he proceeded to give me a full psychological profile. And mind you, I'm 7. I've not really had a lot of life experiences, but it gives me the full enchilada psychological profile with the Rosarch blot tests and all kinds of questions. And I forgot this for a long time, and then one day I remembered it, that this happened to me twice. I was tested with Zenner cards. And Zenner cards are these cards, people see them, sometimes in TV shows and whatnot, and they have archetypal images on them. So like a circle, a square, wavy lines, a triangle, etc. And I had a little map in front of me, and what he wanted me to do was guess which card was going to come up next on the deck and point to it on the map. So he did a couple of them with me, maybe 4 or 5, and I think I didn't do too bad. I was happy with that. Then he didn't show them to me anymore. He just wrote notes down. So what do you think this one is? What do you think that one is? And then I was put in this class, and it got a little odd. It was not reading, writing, and arithmetic at that point. It was a lot of thinking questions. It was a lot of, I felt a little bit like they were leading us to come to certain answers. I felt like they were trying to figure out who we were and asking us a lot of questions about, what we thought of things in our perception. Our nap time, we got graham crackers and a glass of milk, and we lay down our little mat. And we actually were put to guided imagery, so it was just, take a nap. We'd actually imagine you're by the seashore and, this kind of stuff. And I basically felt like I got hypnotized a number of times in that situation. Well, all of this happened without my aforementioned parents, who were kind of paranoid of a lot of things, permission or knowledge. There's been a mix-up on the permission slip. They sent the permission slip home with me somehow. I forgot to get it signed. I set it back in my little, lunchbox or whatever. Took it back unsigned. Okay, so maybe I didn't understand the whole concept of the permission slip at that age. But anyway, my parents got alarmed when I told them about what was happening, and they went and confronted the school officials. And the school officials were like, we need to deal with these problem parents that don't understand how smart their child is. A lot of flattery involved in that class, by the way. And so it was kind of a tug of war between me and the officials. And my mom asked me one time, she said, what bored her one time when she asked me, honey, do you know what's happening? And I said, yeah, you and the school officials are playing chess, and I'm the pawn. So they want me for something. And there's a lot, too. There's a lot to that story, but I definitely, when I began to, I realized I didn't want to talk to the grown-ups about any of the grown-ups. I just shut my mouth and kept my counsel because I was suspecting something was up. When I stopped doing that, they encouraged me to befriend a girl my age. And later, based on what she said to me about a lot of, unfortunately, these programs involved a lot of sexual abuse and abuse that, is part of this whole thing that's coming out about Hollywood and everything. And she told me some things that had happened to her, but it was weird the way she told it to me. It wasn't like this was bad. It was like, this was good. You learn things from this experience. So it was a little creepy. And I figured out that she was in the Monarch program. And one of the telltale signs that I knew that was true was they suddenly moved into my neighborhood from China Lake, California, where her father was stationed. And that was a big intelligence center where a lot of mind control studies were done in China Lake, California. And then as soon as I withdrew from the program my parents put me in, I went from that whole situation to Baptist to school with school uniforms and everything. It was a really weird transition. But yeah, after I got put into parochial school, then they moved back to China Lake. It was almost like they moved out for her to meet me and talk to me. And then how I kind of know that's probably true is I completely lost touch with her. We were pen pals for a while. I moved to a completely different state. And I kept having triggering events when I took the standard achievement test. It was usually scored pretty high. She actually contacted me like years and years and years later. I don't know how she could have possibly gotten my address. You would have had to be an intelligence officer to find us because we didn't exactly, because of my parents' political activities that would happen in the school and everything. And there was a kidnapped attempt with me and my brother as well. It just was totally weird there in California. I've now talked to quite a few, my partner Brett and I call him Shepherd. He was a program kid too. We just talked to a lot of program kids. And so they were kids that were in recruitment or fully went into programs or were trafficked. There was child trafficking, unfortunately, involved in this. And so it was kind of a lot to think about. And then what I just did was I put it out of my mind. I just said, okay, I just want to be a normal kid and have a normal life kind of. And I just said, I'm not going to think about this anymore. So I finished my school career. When I took the 7th grade test, there was another kidnap attempt. When I took the 12th grade test, that's a whole saga by itself. But basically, I felt like I was kind of monitored, We got to do something with her. So what happened? This is interesting. I knew I had to kind of do something about me. I wasn't just going to go into the quiet night and just, live my life. I was a little bit too, I couldn't do remote viewing. I think they were trying to figure out, hey, is she a remote viewer? But I couldn't see past my nose. So my the whole viewing part of my brain didn't function. I'd run into stuff. So, I wasn't that visual, but I did with remote knowing. And so I developed what I later learned to call my instructor or mentor, I guess you call it, our board and talked about having gnosis ability or the knowing. So that is what I learned to do. And then I didn't know what it was called, and it was later on that I, began to discover what this was and what I was doing. And then I was having occasional contact with other beings, but I went really hardcore into my religious, part of my life, and I was afraid of that, so I kind of pushed all of that way. And I just had information coming in, and it was always about the planet, like what was going on with the planet. But my parents being politically aware about, all the things, going on in the world. I learned about the Bilderbergers and the Federal Reserve and the Council on Foreign Relations. I'm like a little kid, and I'm hearing this in my house. So I'm learning about the financial, what's going on. And my dad constantly pointed out on the news with, how they use trigger words to kind of say something like the idea of a conspiracy theorist was made up by the CIA to make people who had questions about the JFK assassination and other types of things to make them look crazy. rather than being, a conspiracy analyst. Let's replace that term.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my early childhood, and it was Lessin and Sasha.
Well, that's very interesting. Apparently, there was a program called Project Talent where they were looking for people, and the more I interview people, the more we are finding young people recruited at a very early age. They're looking for psychic abilities and abilities beyond the norm. I had I forget which one of my people that I interviewed. She said that they actually are seeking the metagene.
There's Penny Bradley. There's Penny Bradley.
Yes, Penny Bradley, right. And so when I was younger, I flipped a chair. No, my mother flipped a chair, a big overstuffed chair, so that she had the metagene. And then when I got older and this guy was trying to beat me up or kill me, I basically, with no martial arts or any formal instruction, I got him down on the ground. I was on top of him, but I went black for a while. I didn't remember what happened, And then I came back, whatever I did, and I was on top of the man, and I had him by his collar, and he was shocked, like, how did you do that? And I don't know how I did that, but apparently there are people that have abilities. I was in a project called Project Stargate, and I'm still finding out about that, but that was the doing things similar to what you're being tested for. Somebody's making noise. Stop making noise. So, Sasha, did you have a comment or question before we go to the next thing?
No, it's just this is. Thank you so much, Karen. It's incredible that you've come out the other side, and I guess for me the big question is, can people, that are so clear as you, reach back to the people that are entrapped, the people we love, and we bridge the gulf and empathize in a way that helps heal this planet. You're channeling Gaia. It's so apparent to me. That's the big voice that you speak from. That's what I hear.
Thank you for asking that question. Well, first of all, I have to say I've appreciated so many people along the way getting me the information to put this puzzle together. You guys were a big part of that. I was just talking to somebody the other day about on the Spreaker platform. You were going to look at the first show I listened to. I got the whole Anunnaki story. It was really important to me. I am an Anunnaki contactee. I just appreciate people who've shared their experiences because that's really difficult to do. I came out with my experiences starting in 2012. I figured, hey, if it's a year that you're going to do that, it might as well be that year, But I sublimated a lot of my experiences. I was involved in a cult within a church, so it was a little bit tricky to talk about, but I was in a Christian denomination that I grew up in, and within it was sort of an inner circle group that had cult-like tendencies, and that church actually split off a cult. And when I was there when it happened. This is one of my features of my life to give me experiential knowledge, is that I'm kind of like the Forrest Gump of this stuff. I'm always at the right place at the right time to observe something and go, oh, wait a minute, that's, I was there when this cult thing started, and I do believe it was connected with the government. A lot of people just, we think of lone gunmen or cults or people under mind control. We don't realize that there's kind of a program here. There's kind of a plan. I just heard Bill Burns talking about how they were talking about Project Monarch and all of that because they wanted to deprogram. I guess we had in the Korea era, which unfortunately I lost my grandfather during that. In the Korea War, there was some prisoners who were American prisoners, and they switched these American prisoners with Russian prisoners, and they were going to make them sleeper agents, I guess, to come in the United States. And so he said Project Monarch was so that we could, find out who these people were and deprogram them. And I have a lot of respect for Bill Burns, but baloney, I don't believe that for a minute. It's hard to accept the fact that our country, maybe not so much now as it was in earlier years, we're now seeing something is really wrong with the meta level of America. There's something wrong at the top with our leadership. There's something wrong with the way we all, fight and bite at each other, when we really all kind of want the same thing. And so I think something, and of course we have the media as such a domination of our society in ways that it's always been, but even more so now. It's like something's going on. And I think that they were, first of all, when they had Project Paperclips, and this is kind of where I would say it starts, it's some marker, it starts earlier than that, because I would say deep politics, deep religion, there's a lot of that already has mind control kind of built in. And, I would have people that possibly be listening, please understand, yes, I was listening to mind control, but I am doing my deprogramming. Are you doing yours? People go, oh, I don't listen to that guy because they were under mind control. Well, did you hear that on TV? It bothers me when people dismiss somebody because they admit that they became aware of what they were involved in. And the thing is, it's hitting us on all cylinders in every aspect of society. So the main thing for us to keep in mind is to deprogram ourselves. And the goal here is to become a self-actualized person, to become a sovereign integral, which is a wonderful term you get from the Wingmakers material. Sovereign integral. It means that you're a holarchic being. You're a whole being, but you're also part of everything. And so as you go, if you go towards that, you'll really fluff off a lot of nonsense, I think.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, you could just say those last 2 or 3 sentences again. It's just incredibly uplifting to hear that.
Well, the thing that was kind of clear to me, and I talked about this on that cosmic communication, is that we've had the mind control is construct a software mind prison. And in the shape of it, it literally has a shape. It's a pyramid. I call it the pyramid of power. And at the top of all pyramids, the tippy top of the pyramid is called a pyramidion. And a pyramidion are elite 1%, are rulers, are billionaires. It's the people who kind of run everything. And then they want us to fall somewhere in line on that pyramid at some level. It's about levels. It's about there's a top and there's a bottom. But the sovereign integral is a Merkaba. So if you look at it as sacred geometry, and I know you guys talk about that, it's a pyramid. One pyramid up is the male principle, and another pyramid, counter-rotating pyramid, is the female principle in balance of one another. And that is the image of the sovereign integral. That is that we are all individually connected to source and individually being who and what we are, but we're whole within ourselves. And this is what all the pyramid of power people want to take you off of. They want you to be timid and afraid and unsure of yourself and unsure of your thoughts. I get a lot of, are you sure and what about? When I talk to people who I know are struggling with their program, they'll go, I'll say, well, the Anunnaki came here and influenced our politics of our planet. And they'll be like, are you sure? Where'd you get that information? It's just they're picking it apart, And then they'll do what about? Well, what about this? And what about that? And, I'll do some of that with people, but mostly I've got to stick to my ground because it's kind of like, I've looked into this and you can take it or leave it. If it works for you and resonates, great. If it doesn't, don't worry about it, because we need to think our own thoughts. We're here to have a human experience and to experience things as a human, to have our observations, to learn, to grow, to try stuff. When I was kind of coming out of religion, go ahead.
Listen, I'm telling you, Karen, if the audience can feel you as well as I can, I hear you telling the real truth right from the heart, right from the highest level, and I'm just awestruck at how beautifully you bring us to that kind of consciousness just by your words. Thank you so much.
Well, the other part of my life experience that taught me a lot was I have 3 children, and my youngest child was born with a list of disability issues, primarily hydrocephalus. She had hydrocephalus spina bifida, which she had to have her spine operated on at birth. And she's my teacher, and I learned from her. And people that in your pyramid of power would be at the bottom, right? They would be the most needy, and some people are rude enough to say useless eaters, which is a horrifying, term. But these are people who, when we flip that pyramid around and we say that all of the servants, the people at the top need to be the servants to the people at the bottom, and that the people at the bottom, if you want to call it that, are teachers to everybody. So we've got to really evaluate how we value people. And a big part of what was going on with these programs was the transhumanism agenda, which kind of says humans, it's kind of saying we're not very strong or smart as humans. We need to have something else added, and I think we've maybe dumbed down our physicality and our mental capacity, but I think actually the human instrument, if you use it as a tool, all the ways that it could be used, is very underutilized and undervalued. And I think anything that you would call ascension would be that we would find out more about our capabilities and not necessarily transfer our capabilities to technology.
Karen, one thing that really has fascinated me lately is the idea that the humanoids that have been running things, the Anunnaki especially, were so bent on their own conflicts that they asked for a group that had some kind of unified mind and could be at peace to help them. And that's when they asked the Zetas, the tall Zetas from Zeta Reticula, to help. And the hybrids that have come out of the stuff done in the 80s and so forth are among us now. And there are diamond children that are showing us that it is a diamond and that there is hope, and that we've really been blessed by these adapted children who are among us now and interbreeding. And so I don't know if that's true or not, but I sure do like it as a possibility.
We probably need some compensation intervention to compensate for the damage being done to us by, as they continued on developing these mind control programs, they began to work on a lot of different frequencies of control. So the food we eat, the GMOs, the chemtrails, all of that is trying to cripple, basically, the frequencies of the human instrument so that we are just kind of not very functional. We're physically not very functional, and mentally we are controllable because we aren't thinking our own thoughts. We're always looking to the outside of ourselves. That was one of the interventions, the negative interventions of the Anunnaki, was to kind of make us part of a servile. And I think the Enlil Enki story was so enlightening to me, because I did see that some of us are, there's some people, they just wouldn't know what to do if somebody didn't tell them what to do. They've been conditioned that way. And other people, and they love structure, and they love that hierarchy pyramid thing. Other people are self-directed and ready to, be, I call them free-range humans. I think Inky wanted free-range humans, to run around and see what they do. Let's see what they do. He was curious.
And that's, it's the underutilization of the wisdom of the feminine that caused basically the peaceful society that Nimrod had generated all over Eurasia, where there was free trade and women could do anything, and it was peaceful, and there wasn't war and there wasn't slavery. And so that's exactly the hierarchy that puts men above women, is what's crippled us from ever having uniform empathy for everything and everyone on the planet and for the planet itself.
Yes, that was a huge part of my cult within a church thing, where they were really harping on the submission of women, women to be silent. I know people who've been in the fundamental circles kind of know what I'm talking about, to be subservient to the husband and to not work outside the home, which didn't become practical economically over time. So that's sort of, but this is their ideal, it was the 1950s Stepford family, I really believe that the mind control that was brought into my church was an experiment as a counter. It happened right at the time, right after the 1960s youth movement and women's movement was a big threat to these patriarchal fundamentalist types. And they were very connected to all of this clandestine research that was going on. So they kind of focused some mind control ideas specifically to counteract that in these circles. And I know it's like a weird thing to think about, but I think recruitment of for instance, my father was in recruitment to go to the FBI from his college. I think that there's a lot of interaction between patriarchal stuff and between what they were saying, and they couch it in a way that makes you feel like, oh, it's a benefit, like this is the natural form and function of a female. And they're harping on it all the time, every week, of course, because you got to go to church twice on Sunday, once on Wednesday, it did ladies' Bible class, all these different things that they had us do to continually reprogram. And it's kind of spiritually boring, though. I have to tell you, when you're just going there to just be reprogrammed, I think people are somewhat spiritually bored. And I think one of the side things that happened was that people were, gossiping. There was a lot of controlling going on. There was an actual pedophile ring in my particular church that I grew up in. So I mean, there was a lot, if you toe the line and you look good and you sound good, then some mischief sort of happens because now you're trying to figure out a way around the rules. You can look good, but you don't have to be good. So at the top of our power pyramid of our church, we had powerful men involved that predated on women and predated on children. Of course, a lot of that's coming out in the news right now. The Me Too campaign and all.
Janet, check Skype chat.
Yes. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Let's bring her on. So, Karen, you can stay on. We're going to bring on Suzy Hansen, and she's calling in from New Zealand. And let's talk about.
That'd be great.
Yeah, she's wonderful. And
she has joined us.
Hi there.
Hi, Suzanne. Hi. Welcome. Sorry for the mix-up, but that's okay. You're here with Karen, Christine, Patrick, Janet, Karen Lessin, and Dr. Sasha, Alex Lessin. And everybody say hi to Suzanne. I'm sorry, I'm trying to do 5 things at once. I'm going to pull up your info.
Hi there.
I'm really
so sorry I'm a bit late. I've had an injury and I was having some physio on it.
Oh my goodness! Sorry to hear that.
Are you okay?
I'm okay. I've got a compressed disc, but I'm sitting comfortably, so I'm just apologising that I'm somewhat late.
We're glad you're here. So let me tell our listeners a little bit about you. I'm just pulling up the bio. Here we go. So Suzanne has a wonderful book called The Dual Soul Connection. That's a hard one for me to say. The Dual, D-U-A-L, Soul, S-O-U-L, Connection. And so Suzy had a 28-year professional career in education, school teaching, and counseling. She's been actively involved in UFO research and sighting investigations in New Zealand for 42 years, and is the founding director of the UFOCUS New Zealand Research Network, established in 2000, a nationwide organization. Suzy, as a director of UFOCUS New Zealand, Suzy lobbied the New Zealand Chief of Defence Forces for the release of the New Zealand Ministry of Defence UFO files, which occurred in 2010 and 2011. And Suzy has lectured internationally at conferences and seminars since 1997 about both New Zealand UFO sightings and her own alien contact and interaction experiences. She's lectured in the USA, Denmark, UK, Australia, and New Zealand. And she has a book called The Dual Soul Connection. At age 20, Suzy Hansen's life changed on a lonely country road. In broad daylight, her car was engulfed by a massive ball of white light, resulting in 90 minutes of missing time and the unfathomable experience of waking after dark. This riveting experience led her to discover an alternative reality, time spent with extraterrestrials on board their craft since childhood, and in fact since her inception as a soul. The dual soul connection, the alien agenda for human advancement, uniquely combines absorbing details of the lifelong alien encounters of UFO researcher and experiencer Suzy Hansen. With scientific examination by Dr. Rudy Schild, emeritus astrophysicist, Harvard Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics, and Hansen and Dr. Schild address such issues as alien culture, spirituality, and consciousness, alongside scientific concepts of advanced physics and organic conscious technology, all within the framework of Hansen's contact with these non-human species. The book outlines human participation in complex alien programs that assisted advance humankind, and Hansen's experience of dual soul identity is central to this positive agenda. Okay, so welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, Hansen's clear empirical approach gives the fullest description of how this off-planet civilization seeks to prepare us for contact and answers the why questions by describing in detail the how. Okay, sounds fascinating. Thank you. Welcome to the show. And before we start, Sasha, do you have anything to say to Suzy?
Yeah, I sure do. Suzy, I got that you are part of several ambassadors that have been coming through with very clear health for humanity from extraterrestrial sources. We're educated, prepared for your ambassadorship, and so I got who you are, and my listeners are getting who you are, and we're so excited to have you on our show.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you.
So go ahead, Suzy, and start telling us your story, because this is a new audience. I know you've been on another show with me and TJ Morris, but this is a different show. Go ahead and tell us.
Okay, well, I guess my experiences that I recalled initially started in childhood, but it was much later that I realised I'd actually been communicating with these entities since before my reincarnation on this planet. But we'll go to that perhaps a little later. So I had these memories in childhood of dreamlike memories and waking at night and seeing these glowing beings, glowing figures by my bed. At that stage, they didn't show me their facial features or bodily features. Whoops. Maybe because they didn't want to frighten me. So I saw these golden entities, golden silhouettes, I call them. They were small, so they didn't fit any of the concepts that I'd been provided in Sunday school of angels or anything like that, even though my mother said, well, they're probably guardian angels or spirits of family members who have come to look in on you. Remember, this was back in the 50s and 60s when all good families in New Zealand went to church on a Sunday and Sunday school. However, to me, they felt very different. I couldn't really, as a child, identify what they were, except that they were these little creatures or silhouettes that appeared at night, and I would recall them speaking to me, and I can recall replying, but it wasn't through the voice or my mouth. It was through thought, what I now, of course, as an adult recognise as telepathy or consciousness. And they would usually say they were going to take me somewhere, and I don't remember any more at that stage. Then I would remember being put back into bed, being told to go to sleep, and I would pretty much do so immediately. Probably they created that situation. And the next day I would often remember this, or I would remember in a dreamlike fashion being in a white room, being taught to do things with my mind, seeing unusual things, which as a child in New Zealand I couldn't identify, but I could still describe it to some extent. Throughout my teenage years, not a great deal happened. I don't have a lot of memories of that time, and I can only assume that either I wasn't recalling them or because, as a teenager, and teenagers tend to be focused on many things, including external exams at school, so maybe I was just left alone for a while to grow up, I don't know. But the next memories that occurred were in my early 20s, and Janet has mentioned one that is mentioned in my bio about when I was 20 and my car was engulfed with a light, and I had some missing time. And that was my reintroduction, shall we say, to these kinds of memories and contacts. And from there, it stepped up very quickly, and these things were happening quite frequently, leading on into my 30s and into my 40s, where I had increasing memories of what was taking place and was able to describe in quite some detail on some occasions. And on other occasions, I would just recall beginnings and ends or snippets from the middle of these experiences. They're still continuing to today, and I'm 62. So they've just taken on, I believe, a different kind of format or presentation. As I have come to understand more, these experiences have changed somewhat. They're much more simple in their format, if I can put it that way.
Do they show increasing peacefulness, hopefulness? Are they in a good direction?
Yes, my experiences have always been positive. I haven't had the negative or traumatic experiences that some abductees describe. I call myself an experiencer or a communicator, which links all different kinds of people who've had contact. They've been positive and transformational, but having said that, there have been times when I have experienced extreme fear or concern about it, simply because I didn't understand what was going on, and especially when I had 2 young children and I was wondering what was happening, and I was beginning to have memories of them being on the craft with me. That was of concern to a young mother, so I did go through stages of fear and worry, but the more I came to understand and recall, the more that fear just faded away completely.
Wow. Thank you.
So, thank you. Karen, do you have any feedback or comments or questions?
No, I love it. I one of the things I've enjoyed is listening to all this experience stories over the years, doing all these shows, and this is New Zealand. I'm struck with how this is going on all over the world to all kinds of people. I think researchers need to pay more attention to the pattern of contact like that. Started out in Sunday school. I was talking about my religious experiences as well. How did that work? I mean, was it really conflictual with your beliefs that you were raised with, or how were you able to reconcile that?
Well, I didn't really, I never really called myself a Christian. The extent of my contact with Christianity was that it was quite normal for families to go along to church on a Sunday in New Zealand in the 50s and 60s when I was growing up. So I used to go to Sunday school, but I never really, I felt, the only way I can explain it is I felt as if I was looking at everything around me in those church environments as being foreign to me. None of it made sense to me. I felt like an outsider. It didn't feel right that something was telling me what to do and how to lead my life and putting restrictions on me. And I can recall sitting in church with my family on one occasion where all of the people in the church were going up to have communion in the Anglican church, and I was not entitled to do that because A, I had never been christened into the church, unlike my sibling, and B, I had not gone through the church's rite of practice where you come to the age of 11 or 12 and you have to go through a certain test and you study the scriptures, etc., and then you are accepted as being able to have communion in the church. So on this occasion, I was left sitting in my seat in this very large church while everybody filed up to have communion. And on that occasion, I thought, well, this is good, because I don't like this. I don't feel as if I fit in here. And I don't even feel the need to be a part of what everybody else is doing. And not long after that, I guess, our family, for whatever reasons, moved away from going to church on a Sunday. And I certainly didn't miss it. And I've never belonged to a church or anything like that ever since. And I have my own personal viewpoint on it. So I guess from an early age, I could experience a lot of things that in those days the church thought was very bad, such as being able to see spirit people and communicate with them from an early age. And even today, of course, there's a lot of people who have quite negative thoughts about that. And so from an early age, I showed these mediumship abilities. And
Susie, we'll have to pause. We have to take a break here for about 5 minutes. We'll be back in 5.
Radio at freedomslips.com. And we'll be right back after this message.
You need some more speed records in this day and age. You need coverage.
Coverage? Oh, you mean them little root weevils that crawl around popping off cameras in your face?
Those root weevils write history.
Many of you know that quote by Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men. You can't handle the truth. Well, you can, and Event Horizons will give you those truths. So when you're mad as hell and not going to take it anymore from that memorable CNN network, you'll know just what to do. We will draw you in and become your news addiction at Event Horizons. Join us Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to noon Eastern Time at freedomslips.com. At Revolution Radio. Our world team members are Dennis Fetcho, John Ilias, David Dunger, Hyla Cass, MD, Melanie Richton, Jim Mars, Paula Harris, John Trallo, Maria Payan, Christopher Husser, DODDS, Jonathan Orchard, and me, your anchor, Dr. Robin Falco.
If you decide not to volunteer, it will not be held against you in any way.
Sounds dangerous.
It is. Very dangerous.
Count me in.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps. Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or a computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it. I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, phone numbers? Well, squeeze on over to www.freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
In breaking news, a visiting Syrian diplomat reported today that their population is evolving rapidly and advancing into a fifth-dimensional consciousness. They are seeking peace with all cosmic cultures, which may mean that the Earth will be asked to join the prestigious Galactic Federation of Light Alliances. Please join Debbie West and Michael Hathaway on Lost Knowledge, Saturdays, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in Studio A, for the latest breaking news on the Star Visitors' peaceful contact and the ongoing project of cleansing the Earth.
This is the people's war. It is our...
Every generation needs a revolution, Jimmy. The American dream is just that. Just a dream. War is a continuation of politics, only by other means. Politics is a continuation of economics by other means. This is our bank. This is our war. And this is our plan of attack.
Banks have become an essential trait to our democracy. So consider this justice.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the internet. Please help support this station so this battle can continue forward. Revolution Radio! The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Welcome to Sacred Matrix, a divine paradigm of love and universal consciousness, with your host, Janet Kira Lessin and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Together, we transform the world.
And now, here are your hosts, Janet Kira and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Aquarian Radio. Oh, sorry. Nope, Sacred Matrix at freedomslips.com on Revolution Radio. I'm sorry. We got to get this fan off. I think it's making a noise. Don't know if you can hear me. Mad, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. You have to call Sasha. The number
I'm trying.
Okay, good. Okay, so today we're going to have a very special show with myself, Janet Kira Lessin, and Dr. Sasha Lessin, and Karen Christine Patrick is coming on as our special guest, and she will be here momentarily. And Karen, let me see if I can pull up a bio for Karen. Karen has been my co-host for several years here. Okay, one second. Here we go. Sasha, take that into the back room. If you want it on speaker, put it right there. Okay, sorry about this, everybody. We're getting on the show. And here's Karen Patrick coming on. So Karen Patrick has been my co-host many times over the past few years here on Revolution Radio and on the Aquarian Radio Network. And she is an incredible investigator, author, researcher, into many of the topics that are relevant today. One of the things she is researching is how to bring around a balance in our planet in terms of economics and stability for every human being so that no one hits rock bottom, no one starves. So she's a specialist on the basic minimum needs economy. If she doesn't pick up that way on the Skype, Mad, can you call her on her phone?
That was her phone I was calling. Let me try it again.
Okay. And Sasha, get in the far back room because that just makes feedback. Okay. Sorry about all this. Okay. So, Sash, what would you like to say about Karen?
Karen's wonderful. Just she analyzes things and teases out the patterns.
Yeah, we're calling her right now. Sorry for this inconvenience. Go ahead, honey. Keep talking.
Well, okay, you have reached the voicemail box of 505.
Okay, let me double check the number in case I gave you the wrong number.
That's the number she gave me.
Okay, let me check.
She just gave it to me. She just gave it to me 3 minutes ago.
Oh, she just gave it to you. Okay. Let me double check what number I have for her. Maybe she transposed a number or something. Go ahead, honey. Keep talking.
Well, anyway, as soon as you get Karen, I mean, she's got all kinds of intellectual stuff, but her personal journey through life is a hero's journey. And, again,
soul connection and how we're being prepared for contact by this off-planet civilization. Back to you, Suzy.
Okay, thank you, Janet. In my book, I write about the 3 waves of volunteer souls coming to this planet. Now, that may sound familiar to some listeners because Dolores Cannon has also written about that. I spoke about that first in 2007 in Sydney, Australia, several years before Dolores put her book out. And I outlined at that stage, and I have outlined in my book, a series of souls that have been incarnating on the planet for the last over 100 years, actually. And from my understanding, it was ascertained by our spiritual governing body, which I have nicknamed the UGB, Universal Governing Body, of our planet that oversees the incarnation of souls here for various reasons. There was concern amongst them, but also amongst our cosmic neighbours, that we were heading down a very bad path, partly because of our quite rapid increase in our understanding of technology over the last 100 years through the Industrial Revolution, etc., but also the spirituality has been decreasing. Instead of increasing alongside that, it's actually been decreasing on the planet as people become more focused on themselves and their own needs rather than having a communal or a global perspective on life on this planet. So they formulated these 3 groups or 3 waves of souls who were, shall I put it this way, recruited from what Dr. Rudy Schild and I call a great field of consciousness, where souls reside, or soul sources or soul sparks, whatever you like to call them, reside between lives. It's one of the many places that they reside. So they were recruited and offered certain tasks on the planet that would help speed up our evolution, our development of consciousness and spirituality, in order to be able to reach a point where perhaps we can have open contact with our cosmic neighbours, or at least be able to use some of the technology which we're currently developing with responsibility, compassion, and understanding of consciousness. So these 3 waves have come in at different times, and I was told from the age of 8 onwards about these programs that they are running, educating humans. So people or souls within those 3 programs, those 3 waves, have received education as a soul, education before they incarnate, what their task is to be, what the difficulties might be, etc., etc. And then once they incarnate, then they have double or triple education. So they are they go on board craft in their soul state to learn more. They go on board craft as a human to be instructed and taught things, to be tested and put into programs and prepared for eventualities coming up on the planet over a long period of time, over a lifetime. So the idea is not to come in as an alien race and take over and tell us what to do and enforce anything upon us. The whole idea behind these 3 programs of incarnating souls, or 3 waves, is to create change from within. We have to do this ourselves. This is part of our soul learning. That's why so many of us are here at this time. We have to make that change ourselves. It cannot be enforced upon us, because if it's enforced upon us, it's not learned. We actually have to learn it ourselves and make that progress ourselves. But to give us a helping hand and a step up, they've taken thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, people on board craft and given them this background education that is being utilised in their lives and in their own tasks that they're carrying out, not only for their personal growth but for that of the planet. And this is right across the board. It's from people in very day-to-day jobs right through to scientists and other people within the professions as well. And although some people may not remember everything that they've experienced, there are many who have, and those are the people who are in the group that's going to be speaking out, communicating with people, as I and many other experiencers have done. So what I find difficult is that many researchers on the speaking circuit today don't understand a lot of the things that experiencers are talking about, and I think many of them give it their own flavour or their own little pet series developed, and I think in many ways some of those researchers are leading us away from what experiencers are trying to say and trying to convey. Not all of them, there's just a handful of people who are doing that, and I think that's unfortunate. But where the dual soul comes in is that certain souls who've been recruited, shall we say, for these purposes, for these waves, have been, shall we say, taken aside and offered an interim step, what I describe in my book in a chapter called Soul Origin as an interim step. So they are offered the opportunity to work with an alien species by having a grey identity. In my case, it's a grey species, positive species of grey, a grey part of their spark of consciousness melded to mine as when I was a soul before I incarnated. So this consciousness blended electrically and consciously, if you want to put it that way, with mine before I incarnated. So that dual soul is able then to take part in things on the craft, activities on the craft, not only as I've already described as a soul or as a human, but also as a grey. And many experiencers describe how they go onto the craft and they recall quite clearly stepping out of their human body and going and doing healing activities or other activities using technology as a grey. And this has been very much misunderstood by some researchers over the years and not fully understood by many experiencers. But this whole idea of the dual soul explains how this can take place and how this form is able to manifest. And in the future, we may understand more about how we as humans and as souls can manifest things. I think we're just beginning to get some inklings of this now. And if we look at some of the technology that's being developed worldwide in universities and scientific research facilities throughout the world, we're looking at very much moving towards consciousness and telepathy as being the key to the technology. So a lot of what people learn on the craft and what they experience in a grey form or a human form is to do with this development of the consciousness and bringing the human consciousness up to speed. Because if in the future we are going to be able to openly communicate with our cosmic neighbours, we are going to have this greater understanding of consciousness, because that's how they operate. That's how their technology operates, their societies operate, their communications operate. And we're a long way from that still. So the whole idea of these three waves of souls coming in and the dual soul connection is to help raise this consciousness and to help people to become more aware of what we can be and the direction in which we're heading.
Wow.
Well, that reminds me of a couple things. So I strongly identify with the Anunnaki. And perhaps there's something in me that has a dual soul that is part Anunnaki. My one other girlfriend identifies with the Greys and the Anunnaki. So it might be more than just a dual soul, but we could be a part of many different races and species, or however you want to call them. The information by Dr. Michael Newton Institute, where they took people, about 30 to 40,000 people were regressed into their life between lives state, and there they stated that many of them had lifetimes simultaneous, because time is illusion up here, the third dimensional physical human Earth, and they simultaneously exist on other planets in other forms. So that would concur with that. And then the whole thing about these ambassadors coming down. There's a wonderful book. It's kind of the title. I wish it would have been different. It was called The Gaia Project 2012. The Earth's Coming in Great Changes. But it talked about these souls that volunteered to come down into the Earth. So everybody here on the Earth who's here has volunteered to come down here. And so what they're creating is a virus, kind of like an antivirus to this evil paradigm that exists throughout the cosmos. And so we're all going to become enlightened and conscious and get it by being in this cycle of birth, life, death, birth, rebirth, and the shortness of life and coming in and out of this life into the interlife and back again is an acceleration process where we're going to wake up, become conscious by first going unconscious into this paradigm, and we get what it's like to kill and be killed and die and hurt and harm each other. And we finally get it on a very deep level because we're experiencing it on a personal level. So thank you for that.
Yeah. It's more than that. Everybody that just now heard Susan has just gone through an expansion of your consciousness. What she said is so clean that it's gone in, and your intellect will feed it to the rest of you, and it will be part of your expansion.
Well, thank you, Sasha.
Go ahead.
I think there's a lot of people who are here to do work, and I think there are a lot of souls here to perform individual tasks to do with their own learning and consciousness as a soul. But I think overlaid over that are many thousands of people who've come with very, very specific tasks to do. And frequently now I'm getting more and more letters from people. I received one today from a gentleman in the UK, people who know that there's something they need to do. And a lot of people are talking about this. They feel there's something they need to do, but they don't know what it is. And sometimes just talking it over with an experiencer or a person who has some memory of soul actions and interactions is like a trigger, and they're able to open something up and make better sense of looking back at their life and looking forward to what they need to do and what changes they may need to make in their life and the way that they do things.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much.
So I want to know a little bit more about how the off-planet civilizations are preparing us for contact, and answer the why by describing the how.
Okay, well, I've already outlined the programs where hundreds of thousands of people are taken on board and are educated and tested, is the best way I can put it. I've described in my book being in test situations where you are you're taught something over a period of time, and then you're given a test situation to see how well you've absorbed that or how adept you are. And this may be to do with using consciousness, it may be to do with healing, it may be to do with technology or space or wherever your interests and skills may lie. And then you're tested on it. And it doesn't seem to be any pass or fail up there on the craft. It's more about, okay, let's use your skills the best way that we can. And if you don't do so well in this test, we're going to put you here because that's another skill that we can develop that you have. We'll put you over here and we'll kind of restart you in that area. These programs are not just run by the Greys. I think the Greys get a lot of bad press. And I'm not saying that there are not negative species of Greys out there, as many people report, but certainly the species that I'm talking about are working closely with other species and our universal governing body, overseeing the spiritual development and the incarnation of souls here. And so there's a great deal of work and planning that has gone into this, because this is a momentous thing. We're talking about future contact with another species from beyond our planet, or many species. And it stands to reason that if we're going to familiarize ourselves with what we need to know before we make that contact, then there has to be some program carried out. For example, look at some of the tribes in the Amazon that have been discovered that have not had contact with humanity. They've been completely isolated, possibly for hundreds and hundreds of years. And there has to be a program of familiarization or very careful steps taken towards that contact, because you have disease to think about, you have modes of communication, you have a civilization being foisted on them too soon, and what may happen as a result of that. And so the same needs to apply to contact with species beyond our planet. This same preparation must carry on for a very long time to get us to that point where we reach that 100th monkey point on the planet, where something that has been looked upon as pseudoscience or imagination or, kooky, etc., suddenly becomes the norm and is accepted and is then investigated seriously. And I think we're getting close to that point now. So this preparation has been going on, and it involves technology. In February of next year, I'll be speaking at the UFO Congress in Phoenix, and they've specifically asked me to speak about the alien technology that I have used and observed over the years. And I think it's quite clear that we still have a long way to go before we can come anywhere close to what they are able to do with their technology. So these are the hows and the whys and the wherefores that I talked about on the blurb on my book, giving that foundation of the three waves, the action of the soul, how the dual soul plays a part in this, and then looking at what is happening on the craft and why people are being taken there. For example, in the latter chapters of my book, I talk about how they actually are putting humans, some of us who've been trained to do this, in front of large groups of people now, taken on in an altered state, these large groups of 250 or more people who are being talked to, lectured to by humans, and they're considering survival techniques in terms of possible earth changes coming up and the ramifications and the repercussions of that for all of us. So all of these things, not just our consciousness, but our living planet, our environment, our ecology, everything is being looked at and prepared for in terms of preparing us in the best way possible. One of their biggest concerns at present, of course, being nuclear concerns.
So is that set in stone, this outcome, or are we participating in the potentials of where we go and See, from my information, I don't think it's set in stone, but what are you getting?
No, I don't think it's set in stone either. In fact, that's what the Greys have told groups of humans that I have been with. It's more like an elastic band. It can stretch and contract depending on each day what happens on the planet and how we deal with it. And I think that we're realizing worldwide that there are ways to solve problems that are better than many of the ways that we've employed as a civilizations over the years. And we're seeing much younger people in their 30s and 40s coming into positions of power. And if you read my book, you'll see that I talk about third wave humans. And these are now people who are in their 30s and 40s who are going to move into positions of power and influence in a positive sense. And they're going to be the game changers on the planet at a time when that leadership and that new sense of unity and global importance is at its peak. So if we're looking ahead and we're seeing possible earth changes, we're having people coming in with new ideas and new ways of solving problems, which is what we need on the planet at the moment. I think we've become very entrenched in the warlike attitude. But yes, I agree, Janet. The Greys selected an analogy that the group of humans I was with could understand at the time, and that was a train journey. They said, you are going to take a train journey from A to Z, shall we say. That's my terminology, but it's roughly how they described it. So you know that you're going to reach the destination eventually. But along the way, you'll have different people getting on and off the train who may create problems or who may delay the train. There could be something go wrong with the tracks. There could be something go wrong with the train. It could be held up at one station, but eventually you will get to the destination. But it's the journey that's the important part of seeking the best solutions along the way. And I think that's about it. I think what they're saying is very correct, and we have to find new ways to deal with our problems, because what we've been doing so far hasn't entirely always worked. And it's about everybody coming on board and changing our attitudes and finding cooperative solutions to our problems. And they said that the Earth is a living entity, and although there may be Earth changes, how far we progress in our consciousness on the planet between each event that might happen will dictate how severe that event might be. So that was very hopeful to me, and it also made me realize that consciousness is not just between creatures or humans or entities. It's about the Earth and living planets and living creatures that have sentience as well.
Oh.
Yes, and I go ahead, Sasha, you talk. What did you want to say?
Yeah, I really feel what you're saying. This is really a time to feel from your heart, just to allow any imagery that you hear that we're getting over. And I just want to say this is Revolution Radio, and I listen to the spot between how angry everything is. Well, you don't have to come from anger, because at the base of anger is just the need for appropriate assertiveness. That's all. Anger can be turned to appropriate assertiveness. And so that I think what we need to do is not dichotomize, but we need to reach out and empathize, universally feel each other in some very profound way. And yes, I think we've gotten to the place where AI even can help us in a spectacle that everybody can understand. But I really think it's here and it's possible. And I'm so excited to hear what you're saying, Susan. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sasha.
So, what was I going to say? So we were at a weekend, 2 weekends, and working with a lot of young people, and I came away feeling so hopeful. During that, I got some information that there was something troublesome going on back home, but I just focused my attention on good things and positive things and light things and conscious and spirituality. And by the time I came out of this 2 weekends of people focused on the same, the issue that I had to go home, and I dreaded going home to face, which was promising to be very difficult and stressful, had disappeared. It gone away. And I thought, wow, that was magical. But I think if we do shift our focus, because we co-create all this, and when we find ourselves in a negative down spiral, what I was given by my extraterrestrials is they showed me 24 potential future history multiverses, roads that we could travel. And at the very end, and some of them were very, just detrimental to everybody. There was a complete annihilation of humanity, and the planet blows up, and that was the worst possible scenario. And then there was everything in between over to the best scenarios of total utopia. And at the end of showing me these 24 different timelines, they said, which one do you choose? And so I went, wow, I'm the chooser? Yes, you're the chooser. And so I chose one that was, it still had stuff to do. So we weren't sitting there bored to death. So I'm hopeful that that's what we have. We have choice. And that we choose, that we realize that we're going down that dark path, and just stop everything, pause, and start with imagining it. Imagine you're in a positive timeline, and that actually, because of where we are in the yugas, right, through the galaxy, through the universe, where we are in time and space, that actually happens quite rapidly, much faster than it did even, I was born in 54, 50 years ago. It just feels like it's happening like overnight, that type of thing. So what do you think about all that?
Me?
Yes, you.
Okay.
You.
Yes, I agree. And I agree with your comment that we co-create our environment. We co-create what's around us. And I think so many more people are becoming aware of the power of their thoughts, the power of intent. And certainly on the craft, many of the activities revolve around understanding the power of intent and how the power of intent can fly a craft. The power of intent can manifest something. The power of intent can create the physical body to disintegrate and reform in a different form or back to the same form. And I was told this is the sort of thing that humans will be able to do far into the future. So they're not going to make a comment like that if they think we're going to annihilate ourselves. So obviously they have hope for us as well. I know they have great hope of these programs I've talked about being activated and being successful. But certainly co-creating in a positive way is a very important thing for people to understand and to remember, Janet.
Yes.
Wow. So you're going to be you're going to be sharing this at the UFO Congress. People can get you in person, right? When is that?
That's right. It's the 14th to the 18th of February in Phoenix, Arizona, at the UFO Congress, and I'll be speaking about consciousness and technology, use of consciousness and technology on the craft. I won't be speaking about the three waves and the more spiritual side of things. They've particularly asked me to speak about what I understand about the technology and the corroborative evidence I've found for that. But it involves spirituality and consciousness in the same way, and power of intent. Those are all inextricably tied together when you're talking about their technology.
Well, I think that the real solution to this dilemma is hearing more from the experiencers. And a lot of the conferences still do a lot of nuts and bolts. So congratulations for being invited to Contact in the Desert, which does occasionally feature like maybe one experiencer each year. And everybody else is nuts and bolts.
Yeah, I'm actually going to the UFO Congress, not Contact in the Desert.
I'm sorry, UFO Congress. Sorry.
Yeah. I do agree with you that, and I've written an article about this recently, actually, the changing role of researchers in contact research, because I think that when the whole contact arena started to be exposed with some of the early researchers like Bud Hopkins, David Jacobs, John Mack, etc., and many others, we didn't have a textbook for it. We didn't understand it. It was quite new, quite frightening. A lot of people, abductees, were talking about quite negative and traumatic experiences. And I think the role of researchers then was to actually, talk to people more in a counselling aspect, to reassure people, because those researchers were learning the ropes at the same time. But now I think you've got more experiencers like myself, Travis Walton and Sherry Wild and others, who are perfectly competent speakers and who I think we have a reasonable understanding of what's going on. And so I think that it's important that the role of researchers changes now, rather than just talking to a few people, a number of people, and putting together what the researcher thinks is happening. I think it's very important to hear from the experiencers themselves, because many experiencers like myself and the ones I've just mentioned, we've been in this a long time. I mean, I've been in this 62 years. So I think it's very important that we convey material ourselves as much as possible, and researchers take on more of a supportive role rather than a leadership role.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I would just like to anyone that felt that they were in the wave of people that are coming to bring love and support to the planet, to just feel that archetype resonating as the fractal that's getting more and more large in your consciousness right now. Okay, that's it.
Yeah. So I wonder how we can bring this about, because it's such a long, slow shift. You've been in it, like you said, 62 years. I've been in it since the beginning. I'm the lifelong experiencer contactee. I've spoken at a couple events, but, some of these people are getting invited back year after year. Steve Batts is coming back. For many years, Linda Moulton Howe's the only woman that's been on these planets. These panels, I'm sorry. And so, how can we really break through here? So you're going to go in with some of the technology that you've seen. So that's, they figured out how to do that so you can appeal to their audience by doing some nuts and bolts stuff. What technologies you've seen? What technologies have you seen?
Well, I think it's, before I talk about the technologies, I think it's more the fact that that I've spent a very long time trying to address the criticism that skeptics and scientists, some scientists, and a lot of other people in the public make, and that is that, well, you people have had experiences, it's all in your head, or you've got a vivid imagination, or you're a hoaxer, or you want to make money, all of those kinds of negative attitudes towards the accounts of experiencers and abductees. But so I have tried to approach my experiences in a more investigative way, having one foot also in the New Zealand sighting investigation in New Zealand for many, many years. I use the same principles really to address my own experiences. So I have revisited the places where things happened. I've talked to witnesses, talked to people who lived in the areas. I've really gone into the nuts and bolts of my contact experiences, if I can put it that way. And what I have found is, quite inconsequentially, quite unexpectedly, I have come across people who are able to describe something that I have seen in the way of technology in exact description. And I think that the best way for one way for experiencers to put across that credibility card to the public or anyone else is to actually have that corroborative evidence that someone else on the other side of the world you've never met, never heard of, has seen the same and used the same piece of technology as you. So I think that's one of the aspects that I will be really pushing in my speech, along with the fact that in order to operate much of their technology, the spirituality and the consciousness is and power of intent is a very big part of it, and that's why we have this need to raise our consciousness, because we are trying to develop much of the same sort of technology, albeit in a less sophisticated form at present, but we will reach that point. And if we don't have that elevated spirituality or consciousness to deal with that technology, then we could go down that same track of misuse, using it for money, using it to harm each other. There has to be this positive slant on this potential technology, so that's what I will be putting across at the Congress.
Wow. I would just like to say, sort of along the lines you were speaking, Carolyn and Corey got a bunch of experiences who didn't know each other from anything, who saw some kind of symbols or on a board or in the sky or something, and she just put them up on a projection, and people then said aloud their associations, and they all had the same associations, and there's some kind of galactic remembrance of them being in a classroom, and we keep getting the same story from so many different sources. And somebody else, it was Russell Brininger, had just gone through this mathematics of, of all the hybrid experiments where people's fluids and flesh was taken. That's been over for some, and the hybrids are among us just so thoroughly. They are hope. These are the children that are adapted, that can think, empathize. That's what the Greys or the Zetas have to give us, is the ability to feel each other, to be able to have a group mind, and what we have to offer. And we got something really cool too, which is individuality also. And I really think it's the other species are groovy too, but so are we. We got a lot to offer. That's what I think.
Yes, I agree entirely. Sorry.
I was just going to say one of the technologies that I saw was this. It was like images projected telepathically into, I guess, my mind or something. I was seeing things in my mind's eye, as well as there was a large screen in front of me with images there. But I was not only seeing, I was feeling, I was hearing, I was, all the senses were awakened as they showed me the 24 different multiverses. Have you ever heard of that technology? Anybody else experiencing that technology?
Yes. Are you talking about the screen, or the fact that you're able to see it in your consciousness?
Right. They used the screen to appeal to my little human self. I was a young child. When I was there, I was my eternal being. So I was like out of the veil of forgetfulness and aware of who I was in my totality, my total form of the continuum. And then they were showing or giving this experience, which was like I was immersed in the process. And all my senses were awakened, and I saw, and I heard, and I smelled, and I felt everything that was going on in these different timelines, these different futures, the potential futures for myself.
While he was dead.
Pardon? No, this was when I was alive. No, that was another experience. This is when I was 4, and I was teleported instantly up to the mothership and taken to a room where they showed me all these images. So have you ever heard of that technology?
Yes, I write about that quite frequently in my book, actually, where even to the extent that where as a child they were able to, what I call, extend me to an adult perspective. So if they wanted to put something into my consciousness that I would understand at a deeper level as a child, but be able to understand better and manifest when I was an adult, they would extend my level of maturity or understanding, is the only way I can really describe it. And so as an 8-year-old child, they were pumping huge amounts of detailed information about these 3 waves into my mind, and then they just closed it off, and I understood it at the time, and then they just closed it off, and it was like my mind went back to the 8-year-old child again. But for that brief time when they were pumping all this information in, I was understanding it as I would do as an adult now. So yes, they awaken all the senses, and, the senses are all topsy-turvy, aren't they, Janet? They're not just, your hands touch things, smell things. You get all these cross-references that can be quite mind-blowing. And I think it's things like this, what you've just described and what I've experienced too, that would be overwhelming for the vast majority of humans if they were to come and land on the White House lawn now. We're just not ready for that. It would just blow people's minds, unless you've been led and developed and worked and evolved towards that understanding. It's just too much.
Right. And as a soul, I'm more than human. So that preparation began before I took this human incarnated into this human avatar. And otherwise, I don't think I could have handled it. And I had several near-death experiences on top of non-stop continuous interactions with extraterrestrials. And each time I died, I became more psychic and conscious and aware of the continuum. And they actually showed me, I wonder if you heard of this, I had a near-death experience and I was actually dead. And it's very similar to where you go when you're on board ship. It's a very similar vibratory frequency, dimension or whatever. But I was dead, and they showed me how to fix my body. I had been strangled, and my throat was crushed or something. So they taught me, or they showed me, and I actually did it myself. But they showed me because I had made the decision to come back into my body and continue in this life because I have a mission here. I'm here for this time, and actually we'll probably meet at the UFO Congress because Sasha and I are going. We go every year. We've gone since for the last 10 years or so. So, yeah. So we'll meet and we'll be able to look at each other soul to soul, and we'll probably I use the old term grok a lot more. A lot of times when experiencers meet face to face, they start getting more and more information. So I look forward to actually meeting you.
Yes, I look forward to that too, Janet.
Yeah, so have you ever heard of anybody being able to repair their body and rejoin it?
Yes, I don't know about rejoining it, but I have seen people being taught to self-heal, and on one occasion, I was actually shown not just the energy field around a person, but the energy field within the body. That was very interesting. And so I think that these are things that we're moving towards in our own technology. Some of the stuff I will be talking about, Janet, is medical type technology. And I have talked to, since my book came out, I've talked to a number of scientists, 2 neuroscientists and astrophysicist, Rudy Schild, of course, who contributed to the book, but theoretical physicists and physicists have been writing to me, asking questions and talking to me about some of the technology I describe and my understanding of how it works or what is required of it. For example, I've just had to have an X-ray on my spine because I had a compressed disc. And so we have what is quite archaic medical technology if we look at what they can use on the craft. And on one occasion on a craft day, I was placed on a bed, on a shelf bed, underneath a big round circle on the ceiling. And then they touched a little screen, and down from that circle on the ceiling came this beam. Now, I wouldn't call it light, I wouldn't call it energy. It was something combined or something in between. Formed a perfect circle over my body, but within that circle, just by touching the screen and changing the frequency, you could see for example, all of my bones in that circle. You could see all of the ligature. You could see all of the vascular structure, etc. So just with a touch, they could change it. They could bring it up on a screen. They could rotate it around, and we are just beginning to do that ourselves with our medical technology. So that was back in the 80s and 90s. So I think there's a great deal that we will be able to learn in the future and develop that is along the lines of self-healing and less invasive forms of medical treatments.
Yeah, what we've discovered by interviewing whistleblowers that have been in the secret space program is that we human beings actually have many of these advanced technologies. We have interviewed people that have, they've been in this kind of war that was going on for a period there, and sometimes they would get their arms or legs cut off, or they were severely wounded and dead, and they were revived, and they laid down on the table and their arms grew back in 3 hours, and all kinds of healing. And at the end of that, this was Randy Kramer, he said, well, they actually told me that I did it myself. So this ability to do this level of healing, including regenerating limbs, is something that we have within our own DNA, and there's 256 strands of DNA that have been turned off. So somehow these super soldiers were able to turn on that ability. But at first they made them believe that this machine was doing it, but we actually have that ability, and Randy regenerated his arm. Plus there's the 20 back program where many of the super soldiers are getting reversed in age back to their 20s or a much younger age, and then they are able to serve for another 20 years. So have you looked into any of those reports?
Yes, I have. I was just reading about that the other day, actually, Janet, and what saddens me is that I have no doubt there are some phenomenal technologies that have already been developed and are in existence, but I have to question why the general public is still suffering and not able to take advantage of these or to learn how to operate them, because this would be part of our slow progress towards moving more and more in that direction, and so that it becomes part of our everyday lives and covers so many more areas of our lives. My concern is that some of these technologies are being developed for the wielding of power rather than for the betterment of people on this planet or entities and creatures on the planet.
Right, so it seems to be power, manipulation, control, greed, keeping the wealth in the hands of the few and the rest of us impoverished in a kind of corporate economic slavery. So that brings to mind, is there going to be some kind of assistance or intervention at some time from our kind and loving extraterrestrials, and one that support us awakening and joining, I always use the analogy, joining the Federation of Planets, Love and Light. Do you have any information on that? Is anybody going to wake up this world and stop this insanity?
Well, I think that's what the 3 waves is all about, but it really is dependent on how many people kind of wake up and start making those changes. And I don't like to predict things, but I did say in my book that I feel that in the next 5 to 10 years we're going to have so many more people coming forward. As things open up, more and more people are going to come forward talking about their experiences, and I think that a lot of them are going to be in my age group and the older age and older. And this will have its advantages because they will be grandparents and parents and community members. They'll probably be in business, or they'll have well-developed reputations or professional lives, or work experience, long work experience. They'll be well known by people, and once you get granddad starting to come out with his experiences, well, firstly the whole family has to say, well, look, granddad's just been this great guy all these years. If he says this, it must be true. And you're going to have a lot more people feeling the freedom to speak out as the subject opens up more. And that has to have a ripple-on effect. I do have hope. I know that the ETs have taken, vast amounts of specimens from the planet that they are preserving. So even if we don't help ourselves and we end up in a rather precarious situation, they can, and we destroy the planet in some way, life on the planet, they can reseed it. And if humans annihilate themselves or reduce their population, then planet Earth will be quite happy about that. And planet Earth and the creatures on it will just carry on as if nothing's happened. And we are actually the species that is not needed. And I think that most humans don't realize that. They see themselves as being superior to the nature world. We're not. We are the ones that are dispensable.
Yeah. So we're running out of time. Sash, final words, and then back to...
Yes, I want you, those of you who have had visions of peace, who've dreamed of peace, you just remember where those came from. It's time to reach out in empathy and feel everybody, to transcend dualism. We're all part of the same thing. Now is the time for those who love peace and came to do it. This is now. Do it. I love you all. And thank you, Suzy.
Yes, Suzy, tell us how we can get your book. What is your book again? And your website, any information you want to convey to our listeners.
Okay, it's called The Dual Soul Connection, The Alien Agenda for Human Advancement, and it's available on Amazon as a Kindle ebook and as a paperback. And my website is www.ufocusnz.org.nz and www.communicatorlink.com.
Thank you very much, Suzy.
Thank you.
Have a blessed
Aloha.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message. Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Any commercial advertising you may hear in this program is of the sole discretion and benefit of the host of whose program you are listening to. Revolution Radio does not endorse any commercial products, nor does it accept monetary compensation for on-air advertising of commercial products, nor will it ever. We are and shall remain 100% listener supported. Any product advertising on this program are considered used at buyer risk, and Revolution Radio shall not be held liable for any claims or damages received from any product advertised within this program. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Most freeze. That's your cerebral cortex looking for an answer it doesn't have.
See? Even your brain knows you're screwed.
Your body's filling with adrenaline right now, whether you know it or not. Your heart's beating fast. It's getting a little harder to breathe. The neurobiological system is telling it to run, but your knees are too weak to move.
Fear is not real. The only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. It is a product of our imagination, causing us to fear things that do not at present and may not ever exist. That is near insanity. Do not misunderstand me. Danger is very real, but fear is a choice. We are all telling ourselves a story.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. 100% listener-supported radio. Reporting the danger. Unafraid.
Right here, where information never sleeps. Revolution Radio.
Take a look around, kid. What do you see? Homes being foreclosed. People working 2-3 jobs just to put food on the table and still drowning in debt. Don't get me wrong. This country was founded on great ideals and principles. They've all been ruined by the banks. Open your eyes to banks that are robbing you. You know who my favorite president was? Who? Thomas Jefferson. Because he saw all of this coming and tried to stop it. He fought the banks. JFK too, and they killed him for it. The banking institution is more dangerous than an army, he said.